And good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Michael Rathburn, here with the DFS Minute for April 30th, Thursday morning here on rotocurve.com. Want to welcome everybody in. Thanks for joining us this morning. Short slate today. You know how we usually roll on Thursdays. We got a couple of early afternoon games, and we got some late games. So the late slate doesn't look too bad. Unfortunately, a couple of decent pitching options early on that we don't get. So we missed out on that, and then in the late stuff, there's a handful of guys I think you can use, and but typically I do take Thursday nights off, take care of some personal stuff. But we'll give you a brief rundown, and then if we do have an opportunity to come back with the late video tonight, we will. But chances are we're going to take the night off with the NFL draft tonight. Going to be focused on a lot of that. For some other things, and then also locking in on Friday as well, gearing up for Friday as we shoot for some of these qualifiers out there, especially on DraftKings and Fantasy Aces. So last night, the good, the bad, the ugly. Okay, the good gave out very strong recommendations. My two top plays of the day were Jock Peterson and Adrian Gonzalez, who both hit a home run, hit a dong the first inning of the game against Ryan Vogelsong, or as we all affectionately name him, Ryan Vogel Dong. And that's exactly what you got last night, where you got all these dongs in the first inning. You got Jock Peterson, Adrian Gonzalez, Andre Ethier, and later on in the night, you got Jimmy Rollins. And you did hear me talk about how I highly recommended loading up on the Dodgers left-handed bats that were hitting in the top 6 of the lineup, which were all 4 of those guys. So we did give that to you last night, which is good. Hopefully you were able to capitalize. We also were on A.J. Przinsky as a value catcher, and then also on Nelson Cruz, who, again, hit another one out. But really and truly, we were focused on the Dodgers last night. Did say if you're going to go in cash games with Dodgers, to go with Gonzalez and go with Peterson. Don't load up in the cash games in the 50-50s and the heads-ups. Pick your spots with the Dodgers, but then rolling into tournaments, don't be afraid to go with the 4 lefties or with the top 6, which is what a lot of guys did and had good success. The bad, the pitching. The problem is the pitching was bad across the board. So whether it was Greinke, whether it was Felix, whether it was Carlos Martinez, it didn't really matter. You had to have Garrett Cole last night in order to cash in big. Now, I did have Carlos Martinez in some spots, but I backed off him, and I told you why, because of the heavy left-handed situation with the Phillies. He did okay. He kind of broke even almost, didn't profit really, and maybe lost a little bit. Greinke, didn't really perform and do well. And then Felix also, on the road didn't do well at all. But Cole was the guy that definitely came through, and was a guy that I was on in the morning. But then as the day went on, I started to back away, mainly because he was on the road. And I thought there was some other better pitching options. And then the ugly is what I called last night the Bartolo colonoscopy, where basically that's what you felt like if you used Bartolo Colon last night. That's what I felt like. I felt like I got a Roto-Rooter job, and it wasn't very much fun. Getting 5 points out of the guy last night. Now, if you look back, the guy makes like one of the best 50-50 heads-up pitchers in daily, because the guy always goes out there and he never has a monster outing, but he never gets blown up. And he got blown up last night. He had no strikeouts, gave up some home runs early, and really was out of the game. So you get a 5 out of a pitcher, you better get a 30-plus. If you had Cole with Cologne, you probably were okay because you had 30-plus to 5. But if you had Cologne with Martinez or Greinke, it probably wasn't looking too good. So for me, obviously tournaments were 0 last night. That's why you play a small percentage of your bankroll in tournaments, because you're shooting for the moon there. Your expectations, your win rate is only going to be 20% at best, because that's what the pay trail is. So, that's what you're looking at there. You're looking for the big score. Now with 50-50s, you needed a little bit more than 110 last night on DraftKings. You probably needed about 120. In some contests, I think I was around the 115 threshold, 120-ish. Some contests came through and some didn't. So kind of split the 50-50s, and then did better on the head-to-heads, because I ran into guys that had Cologne, that had some of the bad pitchers. So I'm not looking at running into a bunch of lineups with Cole. I'm looking at, so again, that's why we tell you, when you're playing daily fantasy baseball, focus on playing the head-to-heads first. Get a good percentage of action in the head-to-head. Mix it in with some 50-50s, okay? And then you want to sprinkle in some tournament, okay? And each day, you want about an 80-20 or a 90-10, play in those what we call quote-unquote cash games, 50-50 heads-ups, 80 to 90% in those, 10 to 20% of the tournaments, and go light. Pick your spots. As we always say, try to go single entry tournament first. And then if you want to throw an entry into a qualifier or a satellite, that's fine too, because you never know if you have a good night, then you can turn that into something much bigger. So that's kind of how we play it. But overall, probably about a break-even night for me. Was disappointing because if Cologne had at least just come through like a 15, probably would have been fun and cashed all the way around. So the Cologne thing did hurt. But again, there were a lot of people that were on him, Martinez, Felix, Greinke, all those guys. So pitching across the industry last night, if you didn't have Garrett Cole, it probably weren't at the top of the hill. So let's go into today. And again, we have a short slate. Looking at Chris Sale late as a -150 favorite at Minnesota. Total is 7. So Sale to me is the top pitcher of the day by far. We do have a good matchup with the Mets-Nats, with DeGrom versus Strasburg. I don't trust Strasburg at this point. I'm not using them in daily. The blow-up factor to me. Now, the Mets aren't exactly, they do have some injuries right now. But for me, I'm just not touching Strasburg today, regardless of whether he's highly recommended by others in the industry or not. I'd rather just go with Chris Sale. I feel a lot more comfortable with Chris Sale than I do with Steven Strasburg. Gotta like Jacob DeGrom, though. Get him at a little bit better price. Now, the Nats are starting to hit. We see with Denard Span coming back, the Nats are starting to hit. But they do they mashed against Alex Wood the other, and so I'm liking more of DeGrom in this spot at home. So I have more faith in DeGrom and Sale. So rolling with Sale and DeGrom in heads-ups and 50-50s, I think I'm going to be okay with doing that today. Another option potentially is Shelby Miller. The problem with Shelby Miller is he's only going 5-6 innings. He's not striking guys out. So, from that perspective, he's somebody that you can look at as safe but no upside. Couple other guys, Garrett Richards' salary on DraftKings is 10.4. For me, that's too high. It's not an elite situation. He's on the road going against Oakland, and he's actually going against a pretty decent pitcher on the other side where Jesse Chavez gets a rotation spot now with Kendall Graveman out of the rotation. Jesse Chavez is in. Chavez, remember last year, real cheap, especially, on DraftKings and FanDuel, extremely cheap and gave you value last year and really was a winning cash game player and tournament player for daily fantasy baseball. So like Chavez in this spot, you get him at a pretty reasonable price, $7,600 on DraftKings. So I think Chavez is in play, Sale is in play, and then also DeGrom. For me, Richards is not in play, Miller's not in play. And then as far as the bats go, take a look at the Cleveland-Toronto game here. I think you want some right-handed beef in Cleveland-Toronto. Load up on the righties in this game because you got Daniel Norris and you got TJ House. TJ House cannot get right-handed batters out. So Edwin Encarnacion, Jose Bautista, Josh Donaldson, probably going to be a lot of guys on these guys tonight. But again, in a short slate with limited options, I actually wouldn't mind trying to roll out 3 Blue Jay right-handed guys in a heads-up 50-50 because the upside is immense. And I think that, with TJ House's struggles against right-handed power right now, it's just you got to take advantage of it. So that would be the way that I would go. Quick DFS minute here this morning. Not a lot of industry news last night. The only thing that really kind of came out was, and I put it out there early in the morning, is MGT, for which owns Draft Day, did kind of make a public statement that they are up for sale. Now, they've been for sale for quite some time. It's public knowledge what they bought it for from the Draft Day guys, and it's public knowledge what they seem to think their company is worth and what they think they should get. And I think, in this case, that the perception is not reality. They're asking way too much. They're not going to get it. People are looking at it and saying, wait a minute, you can't claim to be number 3. Your site's not growing. You're not offering tournaments. You're not doing live finals. You're not doing anything that's really, they're not doing any marketing spends. They're not doing any advertising. They're not doing anything at this point except rolling out the site every day with the minimum amount of contests. So for me, what that tells me is they've been trying to sell. And I did mention it on the first DFS minute, one of the first DFS minutes, where I talked about each individual site and what they were doing. Draft day, to me, I think the writing is on the wall, unfortunately. I don't know if somebody's going to swoop in and take it over. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It seems like they're more willing to just let the company go down if they can't get their price, which is crazy. Just sell it, move on, do something else, and let somebody else run it that can actually do something with it. Because, man, if somebody were to come to me tomorrow or today and say, hey, I'm going to go buy draft day, can you run it? I probably would say, yeah, let's do it. Let's try to make a go for it, only because I really like what Taylor and Andrew built over there in that team. I have a lot of respect for those guys. I love what they did with the bracket concept, and MGT has completely just crapped it. They don't run brackets anymore. They don't run big finals. They don't do any of that stuff. And to me, they're missing out. So clearly, what it means to me, I think MGT bought draft day in a means to just flip it. Get in, get out, and they haven't been able to do it because they're burning cash like crazy. So I think in a situation like that, you just wait until the money runs out and you see if you can buy it for pennies on the dollar. So that's my situation. I hope that somebody comes in and saves draft day and really runs it and gets it up to where it needs to be, because I think there's something there, and I think it can be resurrected, but it's got to be under the right tutelage, under the right management. And it's got to be somebody that's in it for the long haul, not just looking to come in and do a house flip. So that's my take for the day, and I'm going to hit you up maybe later on today, but if not, we'll definitely hit you up tomorrow. And remember, we got Benny and Josh coming up 12 noon Eastern tomorrow on the Curve. We're going to hit you with everything on Friday's slate, big slate, and we'll see you then. As we always say here at Roto Curve, stay classy, DFS.